Human dancing feet make patterns as varied as culture itself. These leggy patterns form part of the silent language of body communication. They attract our fascinated stares. But what do they communicate? Choreometrics presents some of the answers in part 3 of its study of movement style and culture, dealing with step style, a cross-cultural look at the use of leg and foot in dance. In Africa, a whole village will turn out to cheer their champion dancer. Millions have flocked to see Astare's tap dancing. For such leg skill is a triumphant response to a universal human problem: how to stand upright on two legs against the pull of gravity. We bipeds are all engaged in a balancing act, and we delight in feats of two-legged locomotion, the fancier the better. Dancing, which is fancy locomotion, sometimes reflects the sports of a people. Sometimes it reflects their work. This work movement from the potter's wheel is reflected in this dance. Each dance style, each mode of playing with equilibrium is also a cultural tradition. The main European dance tradition relates to the ground with foot crossing, kicking, leaping, and pointing, as in this Provençal folk dance, a style that is matched and carried to its peak in ballet. This special style of leg agility is made more vivid and arresting because the steps are repeated again and again by all the dancers, suggesting that each step holds some important meaning. The regimentation of step makes the pattern easy to pick out and to compare cross-culturally. Even when feet are not coordinated, the dancers in any group may share a common style. Exceptions are those cultures where males and females dance in different ways. The forcefulness of the males, standing for the more violent exertions required in masculine activities, and the quieter, smoother feminine style keyed to feminine roles. This Avicen sailor dance exhibits gender contrast at its maximum. More often, about the same dance step is used by both sexes in a culture. In this case, a right-left, often on the ground pattern. In our diagram of the continuum of step, the off-on type falls in the middle range. At one extreme of the step continuum, we put the styles that often lift the feet away from the ground to allow complex maneuvers like this Thai dramatic piece, where feet and toes articulate in the air. Because toe dancing keeps the whole foot away from the ground, it too belongs in this part of the continuum. At the other extreme, we place the ground-hugging step, where the feet slide along the earth. These North Burmese girls dig trenches in the dust when they dance. An East African example of the ground-hugging style, characteristic of warm latitudes where women take a leading part in dance, as they do in agriculture, and where they often use their feet like rakes to cover the seed they sow. Their ground-hugging step is perhaps a sign of their close alliance with the earth. Ground-hugging can often be seen in the walk of Africans. Ground-hugging is a magic ingredient in African dance, since it allows for the free play of the mid-body. Alternation off and on the ground, the middle range of the step continuum, is common among the footmen of the world, the hunters and descendants of hunters whose livelihood depends on the amount of territory they cover on foot. The mile-devouring jog trot of the hunter is reflected in the relaxed alternating footwork of much Amerindian dancing. The lift of the foot, typical of the upper part of the continuum, facilitates highly specialized articulation. For instance, this rond de jambe resembles the Mexican bottle dance, and both dances may represent a maneuver basic to civilization, the kick of the potter's foot revolving his wheel. The potter's hands are also extremely agile. In fact, we find that articulation of hands and feet is characteristic of advanced Old World economies. Note the finger articulation in the flamenco guitarist's hands, paralleled by the precisely formed syllables of the singer, and by the heel and toe work that so clearly defines the dancer's personal space. More foot articulation as a South Indian dance coach massages his pupil with an oily foot. A Malay fisherman brings his forefoot into play as an oarlock. The grain is stirred by the agile foot of a Balinese rice thresher. In Borneo, the step of the spirit-possessed dancer matches the footwork of rice threshing. Another of the many images linking step style to subsistence behaviors. Indeed, mankind's productive stance on the earth itself seems to shape the whole continuum of step. Ground hugging, off-on, articulated. We located the 500 dances in our world sample along this continuum, and within it found 7 step types which had distinctive cultural frequencies. These 7 points on the step scale will now be shown so that you can learn to recognize them. The first step style, control. In a Thai dramatization of the Ramayana, each of the heavenly maidens turns the forefoot sideways with the controlled precision that marks the fine arts of the urbanized and stratified Far East. Controlled stepping is characteristic of East Asia. Here it turns up in a remote mountain village where a Mayao tribesman weaves his lateral and embroidered step pattern to the deep tones of his mouth organ. This Malay trance dance shows the controlled, slow placement of the foot so notable in East Asian style. And this may be the outcome of the careful locomotion essential in the silted mud of rice fields under irrigation, or a symbol of life in a world where every scrap of land was farmed and occupied, and any step might be an unwelcome intrusion. Now a sketch from the Pekin Opera that dramatizes this cautious style. A weary traveler prepares for sleep in a strange inn. He blows out the lamp. He finds his bed in the pitch dark. The murderer appears. Controlled, the first point on the step continuum. Point 2, heel and toe pointing. We believe pointing to be a trait of the horseman's dances native to the Black Sea zone, where the horse was probably domesticated and where modern horsemanship developed. Toe pointing appears at a peak moment in this Turkish equestrian game where the rider keeps his balance by pointing his toe down. In such peak efforts, the rider stands up in his stirrups and pointing keeps him in the saddle. The old sport of spearing the ring. To catch the ring, the rider stands on the ball of her foot. The vaquero's horse begins to canter. His toe goes down for a moment as he steadies himself in the saddle. Our theory that toe dancing comes from horsemen's cultures is supported by the fact that it's a folk tradition principally found among the cultural descendants of the Scythians who developed horsemanship, like these Georgians from the Caucasus, or these Ossetian Cossacks. We surmise that toe dancing style spread into Europe, carried by mounted conquerors from the East. It appeared in the ballet, the entertainment of kings and nobles who were by training enthusiastic horsemen. Perhaps these cavaliers who long ruled Europe were thrilled by toe dancing because it symbolized their knightly power balanced on the horseman's pointed toe. Toe dancing is found principally from the Black Sea north and west in this Slovak shepherd's dance, in the aristocratic Highland fling of Scotland, in this Breton fisherman's dance, among the Basques. Toe pointing also occurs in the broader category, stepping, point 3 on the scale. Stepping is characterized by sideward foot motion and longitudinal foot articulation. Note the precise lower leg and foot crossing of these Portuguese villagers as they interweave and define their terrain. The Latins brought along stepping to their American colonies, as one can see in this jarana from Yucatan in Mexico. The articulation of the forefoot is lengthwise. There are swift sideward kicking movements. There is, moreover, the forceful beat of leather heels and soles, as in this Andalusian zapatadeo. Stepping is characteristic of the circum-Mediterranean. European stepping is a shod tradition. In northern latitudes, heavy leather or wooden shoes protect the dancers and the workers' feet from ice and stones and hard factory floors. Such solo male clogging was the dance par excellence of Western Europe and North America. Clogging gave rise to the tap dance, into which Astaire introduced ballet movement. But beneath the fancy dress, tap was still a way of showing off the same leg skills that Westerners enjoy in sport, in games like hopscotch. Here is a skating step. Thus, both the dances and the sports of Europe reinforce the same leg style. The bullfighter stays alive by nimble-footed shifts in territory. Nimble-footedness comes to symbolize skill in handling social space and is characteristically found in crowded, competitive societies represented here in a ballet set in Paris. Note that the most nimble-footed or socially agile emerge from the crowd. But perhaps the real story of European stepping is to be found in the open fields. Plow agriculture is the highest correlate of stepping style. The plow brought the compactness and order of row crops into all agriculture and made the farmer and his wife tread the straight and narrow path. Thus, all through Eurasia, from Europe to Japan, they cultivate their gardens without damaging the tender green shoots and roots they move between. Intensive row agriculture demands foot crossing with careful lengthwise articulation to maintain balance at work along the rows. A quick shifting pace keeps a barefoot plowboy's feet unhurt. You need to step lively to cut a straight furrow, or to manage a big horse with a heavy load, or to plow swiftly and deeply along a mountainside and never stumble. And on feast days, with wine and music, the plowman picks out a pretty girl to help him show off the plowman's foot skills on which the village depends. So in Hungary and in Crete, farmers cut delicate capers in their plowman's boots. Overseas, in the backwoods of the old colonies, the European style persists. The shod, multidirectional kicking step of the horseman and the plowboy. This off-the-ground step style, which permits foot articulation, is the distinctive mark of dance in the whole of Eurasia. The mid-segment of the step continuum has its main locus in the wilderness lands round the Pacific. These Malayan raftsmen face two problems: shooting the rapids and keeping their footing on the slippery bamboo poles of their raft. This Malayan waterman's culture also moved along bamboo catwalks as it spread through the Malaysian jungle, balancing on bamboo poles, standing on bamboo platforms, and it developed a dance that teaches deft vertical foot movements with bamboo blows for the clumsy footing. The style is a complex pattern of largely vertical movements. Complex vertical stepping is found in Malaya, in Africa, but especially among American Indians. Plains Indians move onto the dance ground like a hunting or raiding party. The complex pattern of their step may be a way of showing off the skillful footwork of the hunter moving over rough terrain. When the hunter moves toward his quarry, when the hunter steals into a stream to shoot a fish, he employs a high-stepping style that hunter dances often reinforce, as in these scenes from the Mato Grosso in South America. The hoop dance employs the crouch of the hunter looking for sign, the rapid and intricate footwork of the hunter running down the game. The hoop dance is close kin in posture and virile power to this Warao hunter's dance from the Chingu River in South America, except that in the Chingu dance, the legs are regularly alternated with a heavy stomping accent on one foot. Simple alternation, like walking, is found in all regions of culture and in all climes. It can facilitate a complex choreography, like this German sword dance. But regular alternating step is most frequent in the simply organized socio-economies around the Circum-Pacific, as among these moccasined American Indians, among the barefoot Indians of South America, like these Yahavi ladies backing away from their masked initiators down the sand spit. A Jivaro hunter paces along the bank of a South American river 10,000 miles from the home of his Siberian ancestors. His folks walked all that way. Thus, simple locomotion is celebrated in the dances of the Jivaro as it is in so many American Indian dances. In nearby Colombia, the Barasana walk beautifully in rhythm. Bachelor bravos of the Chinguana tribe in South America, visiting house to house with their trumpets, warm up with stamping alternation. They fall into the ground-hugging glide common in the big villages of the tropics. They duck into the men's house and bring out one of their young mistresses to the dance. This trio takes us toward the ground-hugging sector of the step continuum, which begins with point 6, sliding step. These are the pygmies of the Ituri rainforest. Note how they slide their feet along the ground, well balanced for erotic gestures. This sliding, earth-caressing foot style may somehow be a feminine style, for it's most frequent where women are prominent in ritual and in agriculture. The sliding step of these ritual dancers resembles the foot movement of this woman as she plants her field. The sliding step, found in the tropics from Africa to South America. These are the Canela, a gardening people of eastern Brazil, at a regular afternoon ritual rehearsal, singing polyphonically, sliding their feet along the sandy soil. Both these practices are characteristic of the gardening societies of the tropics, where men and women share the tasks about equally. This couple in Polynesian Ontong Java are harvesting in a complementary way. Here we see the dancers of Ontong Java using the ground-based foot-shifting step. The tribal bihu of northern India, another gardening economy. Here, the lateral action of the heel is accompanied by hip twisting, another trait of dance in many complementary societies. In an African ritual in Chad, pelvic movements and polyrhythm accompany a foot-shifting step that on inspection looks like an African forerunner of the Charleston. This African step, where the foot scratches the earth, brings us to the last point on the scale. Point 7, digging, where the foot digs into the ground. This may be the primordial step. At any rate, it's typical of food gatherers like these Australian Aboriginals chugging along through the sand. Note how these Australian boys use the earth like a plaything as they toboggan down a sandhill. Slow motion shows how one of these lads skillfully digs for water with his foot. Note how the digging steps of these Australian women have danced deep trenches into the sandy soil in a night ritual. The digging step again, in another gathering group, the Bushmen of South Africa. Their stop-time footwork resembles the foot action of a Bushman woman digging and planting. It has almost the same dynamic. It has almost the same rhythmic form. The digging step plows a little trench in the sand as a file of bushmen circle round during their evening ritual. Here the women dance but little. Instead, they provide the music as they do most of the food in this gathering society, calling the tune for their men to show off their splendid hunter legs in subtle, polymetered digging steps. These people are nomads. They have no houses, no permanent abode. And as the men's feet score the sand in a dusty groove, they trace a magic figure 8 round their women and children. Their dance step marking out a human habitation in the wilderness. Their dance step relating the people to their terrain as we've seen other step styles seem to do for other families of mankind. This is the substance of the continuum and the scale of dance steps. Point 1 of the scale, control, typical of East Asia and the world of rice growing. Point 2, the horseback cultures of Europe. Point 3, stepping, the plowman of the circum-Mediterranean. Point 4, complex vertical, the hunter's style. Point 5, simple alternation, like walking, a human universal, but commonest among the footmen of the Circum-Pacific. Point 6, sliding, the ground-hugging style of the gardeners of the tropics. Point 7, digging, the style of the earth-trusting foot foragers and food gatherers like these bushmen. Perhaps then, these playful two-legged bouts with gravity, these fancy styles of locomotion that we call dance steps, may record the main varieties of mankind's productive stance upon the earth itself.
Mira ese parejo, mira cómo baila, de abajo para arriba, de arriba para abajo.